Hello and welcome to Pencil versus Pixel. I'm your host, Caesar, and it is my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Mr. Chase Reeves. Chase, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm happy and I'm pleased as punch to be here with you, Caesar.
Awesome. So Chase is a designer. He's primarily known for his web design work on very popular blogs and websites. And he's also a designer and co-founder of Fizzle.co, where you could get a lot of amazing insight on how to build an online business. So Chase, before we get started, I'm going to ask you what I ask all my guests.
All right.
Pencil or pixel?
That's a good question. It's a good question. Okay, I should answer it this way. Well, I am taking notes with my pencil. All right, so I got that going for me. But I just pulled this out of my bag yesterday because I lost my pen. So I normally am pen on paper, but to be honest, I don't know. In the creative process, I'm all for rapid prototyping and thinking things through and sketching and doing all this stuff, and I've always been about that. But there's something that happens to me when I get into the picture resolution sort of level that things get serious. We're not playing around here anymore, because how many wireframes have I drawn and that helped me get to the gist of like what this thing's about. But that's all really simple, and compared to when you see exactly what 960 pixels wide will get you, how many characters you can fit in, what kind of headline you can actually get towards, and we're looking at images that we actually can pull from, like what could possibly go in there. So we're gonna have to make it wider or shorter or whatever. Like that's when the shit really hits the fan for me. Is truly actually I think all the real work for me happens in pixels. Yes. Even though I wish my answer was pencil. I wish my answer was I sketch things out, do stuff, and I do a lot there. And there are some, but really the goal there is just as quickly as possible figure out if there's any massive roadblocks you haven't already come across, and then get into pixel. And I'm coming to terms with the fact that like I just have to waste a lot of time there. I just have to commit myself to wasting time in Photoshop, because when I'm in the middle of a redesign right now that I'm like trying to rush, and I'm learning my lesson. Like you don't get to, like, I'm not a good designer. It takes me a long time to get through the stuff, and those are the important things, because when I'm getting through the thing, what I'm doing is I'm learning what matters about this thing, like what really matters about it, and all the other crap that's out there that I could possibly put into this, and that process is the sacred sort of journey, of figuring out what this thing really is. Like Frank Shamiro has some quote about design. I don't remember it. It's a life-changing quote. I don't remember it word for word, but it's something about design is like really like making a thing what that thing actually is, and that's stuck with me. What is this website? What is this thing? And how do I make it that? And not something else because I saw something else on, some gallery site. And not something over there because I saw that over there or someone else is doing that. But really what this thing is. And I think if I've had any success in design, it's been because of that process. Am I making any sense, Caesar? I don't know.
Absolute
I don't know.
Sense. And we're gonna definitely touch more on that a little bit later. But
okay.
But Chase, let's go ahead and let's get to know you a little bit better. Give us an overview of exactly what you do.
So I was a designer. I am a designer, but like self-taught, no lessons. I then I've been in random whatever. I had jobs. I worked at like a Jamba Juice. I had that as a job. I went to school and I studied religious studies, and I was planning on becoming a pastor actually, and then got into, when my wife and I moved up to Portland from the Bay Area, I just did some Craigslist job hunting and ended up getting a job in, some sort of like media sort of industry thing. And that led to another job at like a web agency where I was sort of business development or mostly project management, managing clients. It was small, so you wore like every other hat that could possibly be there. And so I wore a lot of hats there. Then I jumped out on my own and tried to do my own, I did my own sort of design stuff for a while. Actually, they totally laid me off because the economy hit the fan, and it was fine that my son was like 2 weeks from being born. That's fine. No, I'll figure out how to make ends meet, and I did. I just made people's blogs and design stuff, and I really wanted to try to do the entrepreneurial thing because I don't know. I was just the kind of guy who would see a different way of doing it, but the boss wouldn't let me do it that way. I was always like that, you know, for better or for worse. I mean, the boss ended up 98% of the time knowing much better than me, but I needed to go learn those lessons, you know? So I wanted to start it up on my own. I ended up doing it, and it did okay. Not that great, but then I was like, I need to get some more money. This isn't really working all that great right now because the kid is here now, and I have to go do some crazy stuff to actually make money. And so I got another job at a tech startup in Portland, and that was really a formative time for me because I worked with an awesome CEO and founder and learned, cut my teeth, did a bunch of this stuff that taught me a bunch of stuff that I'm glad I got to go through, you know, because then I eventually jumped out on my own again. And I had the goal of just designing sort of more high profile, but kind of still bootstrapped blogs. Because this was the community that I was already sort of moving in. I was always blogging on the side and getting to know different bloggers and going out to conferences and having cocktails with them and all that stuff. And so I was like, yeah, I'm the guy who makes, you know, $100,000 to $500,000 a year, who probably just had some stock theme that he's Frankensteined over the last 3 years. I'm just going to reach out to all these guys. Like, I know 10 of them right now that would work with me if I could make this work for them price wise. And so I was like, I'm just going to do as high profile as I can get and try to be the guy who does that. And ended up partnering full time with the first guy I designed a site for, which was Corbett Barr from Think Traffic. And so we did that. We worked really well together. He took a chance on me. We were getting to know each other through a conference and drinking Fernet at the bar. And then next thing you know, we're like, our wives were getting to know each other. And so it's turned into a great relationship and then a partnership. And so that's now what I find myself in the middle of. We've partnered together first in a small way to make Fizzle.co, which is honest business training for online business builders. So it's people who want to start their own thing, but in a small way. They don't want to go raise money. They don't want to hire a bunch of other people. They have something they want to build, something they want to create in the world. You know, they want to support themselves, buy their kid their gluten-free crackers with money that they've made, hand-shucked money, right? So we've all done this. Corbett's been teaching people how to do this for a while, specifically about blogging. I've been learning how to do this for a while. And we have an employee, Caleb, who also is doing the same thing. And it's great because we all have these different personalities and we approach these things from such different perspectives. And before we started, you mentioned that you listened to the Fizzle show. And that's a perfect example of just the weird differences in our personalities where nobody's stepping on each other's toes. And it's really become this really serendipitous partnership. So we started on that. We just partnered on Fizzle, and then it was like, okay, I need to bring you into the whole thing, Chase, because this is Corbett's baby. I mean, he's built this for the last 4 years into something that's really significant with Think Traffic. It's got a huge audience, really well respected, and so he wanted to bring me in on the whole thing, and so we talked about that. We just finished all the details on that basically, and so now that is what I do for a living. Is we train entrepreneurs in small and meaningful ways. You know, it's not some big super, like Fizzle's $35 a month, so it's really affordable for anybody who wants to take their business seriously, and it keeps enough people out who want to play entrepreneur. You know what I mean? Which is that there's a lot of people. I was in that mode for a long time. It took a long time for me to be able to ever once pay for a thing. So anyways, that's my dream right now. My dream right now is serving the entrepreneur on that journey, going from like, dude, I'd love to, but no way, I'll never be able to like. Kind of the way I think about it, it's like if you can do if I can save you 6 months, in 6 months of pretty hard work, I can save you, 3 to 4 or 5, 6 years of hard lessons learned, then that's exactly where I want to be, and just fill the world with more entrepreneurs. But I don't really see it on that big scale. I see it on like the individual stories. You know what I mean?
That Fizzle.co serves as a sort of platform to be able to do that, to teach other people and say, hey, I'm going to save you a chunk of time that you would otherwise waste and all of these different things to build your online business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it's painful. It's just painful shit. Yeah. Like it's isolating. You're alone. You have to make up all that. You're like, I need to know what to do next. And you're capable. You're good at this shit. You can make this happen. You're the only person that's coming at it from the way you're coming at it, right? With the unique like stories and situations and the kinds of blood that you have. So there's amazing opportunity, but it's also it's hard stuff. There's new technology, but it's also the oldest thing in the world to barter with someone. Like, hey, I have 10 sheep, you have 2 cows, like, let's make a deal. But it's like, so it's the oldest thing in the world. It's human nature to build something, to support yourself. And to me, that's like it's sort of a spiritual journey in that sense. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, because it's been such a like kind of I guess, I don't know, spiritual is sort of a $9 word, but it's been such a journey of discovery for me. Business itself has been such a personal journey, and I've loved it so much. So I'm trying to kind of help other people have the same experience.
And you know what? You touched on something really important, and it's your partnership with Corbett Bar, and Caleb Logic. All of you have your own individual specific strengths. Caleb, he's like the video guy, right? And he does a fantastic job with all of your trainings and anything you do video. And Corbett has a lot of that knowledge where he comes from tech startup background, right? Am I correct? Okay, yep. So that's a powerful combination, all three of you guys, which is awesome.
It is, yeah, because it's funny, like, and so at the beginning of every Fizzle show, I say your hosts are Corbett Barr, and then I say something about each one of us, and so it started out as Corbett Barr, the wise one, Caleb, the deep one, because he has this super deep voice, and me, the like over-caffeinated one or whatever. And what I've started doing is like taking movie references or whatever. And it's been really funny because normally they're like the one I just recorded, which won't be air until it airs tomorrow. It is The Big Lebowski, and I have this idea for doing like 10 of them using The Big Lebowski and always using different characters. But the first 3 you have to think about are Walter, Donnie, and the dude. Right, and it's totally Corbett's totally Walter, Caleb's Donnie because he's out of his element, and I actually was like, I'm uncomfortable being the dude. So what I said was I'm the German punks because I believe in nothing, Lebowski, and also because I'm uncomfortable being the dude. But really, we were watching, Corbett and I were chatting yesterday as we were thinking this through, and he's like, "Oh, you totally are the dude. You're the worst." Because it's like there's this awesome scene where Walter's like, "That's not her finger, dude. I can get you a finger. You want a finger? I can get you a finger." And just the way they were relating to one another is totally Corbett and I, because he's the guy who has all this experience and all these great answers, and he's really well educated on this stuff, both in like real life experience and in like education, and I am kind of fly by the seat of my pants. That rug really held the room together, man, kind of guy. I'm the creative director, and so I'm glad you agree with me on that, because it is a we did one episode of the Fizzle Show where we talk about like partnership. We talk about teamwork. Does teamwork make the dream work, as the saying goes? And I wish this for everyone, especially like in your audience, the creatives who want to step out on their own. We all think in terms of this lone wolf sort of mentality naturally, because we know what it's like to open up Illustrator or Photoshop and make something that we think is awesome, and then maybe put that onto a poster or a T-shirt or do the thing. And it's been really, really liberating for me to not have to wear all the hats like I have been most of my life. It's just, I get to really just hone in on what I'm great at and what I really bring to the table. And yeah, that means my slice of the pie is smaller, right? But I'm doing much better work because of it. Maybe, I don't know. I might be more hungry if I was living hand to mouth a bit more or whatever. But I'm kind of tired of being hungry at this point. And frankly, I still am quite hungry. Those gluten-free crackers are way more than the money than they're worth. But yeah. So
Chase, you've touched a little bit about going to conferences. So yeah, can you talk to us about the importance of networking with people and talking to people and going to these conferences in general? A lot of us don't really go to conferences. We think that everything's online. We can find anything online. That's our only hub. But what is it about conferences that make stuff happen?
Well, it's people. It's right. I mean, the best thing for me about conferences is the lifelong relationships that I've made with people while not going to the conferences. While sitting in some bar instead of in a. I can't remember a single. I can remember one session that I've ever been in, right? And maybe I haven't gone until I've gone to 20 or 30 sessions, right? I can remember one of them, maximum. But I've made lifelong friends there, whether it's at a bar or whether it's like just, I don't know. Normally it's from knowing who they are online, having a little bit of a relationship on Twitter or on blog comments or whatever, right? You know how people are online, like you get to know them. And that's what I love about conferences. It's like when you actually take that digital relationship and put it into meet space, now things start to grow. And I mean, just recently I was at WWDC like a couple months ago. I absolutely made friends that are going to be friends for life.
Nice.
Just that, and I never heard of these people before, really. But because I knew one guy, because I knew Brett Kelly, or because I knew, I think it was mostly just Brett Kelly. He's like, oh, you got to meet, and because I'm a good guy. You know what I mean? I can drink. I can smoke cigars. I generally have interesting things to say. I'm all in. I have my ass on the line for shit. And I respect Brett because it's the same things about him, you know? So
right.
I get to meet his friends in that situation, and he gets to meet mine. So I absolutely think it's about the relationships.
Awesome. So what kind of conferences do you recommend going to? I know that a lot of creatives, a lot of designers go to these design-centric conferences to maybe learn the latest, new thing or way of doing things. But do you have any recommendations on other conferences that are sort of outside the design world per se to go to a network?
I can only speak from my own experience. I've gone to Blog World in LA, and I think now it's like New Media Expo or whatever. And again, the only reason why that was good was, man, I met some great people there. I met Corbett there. In LA. I met Chris Pearson from DIY Themes, who became a good friend. He's the guy who created Thesis, and I made all my sites on Thesis. I learned everything I know about creating HTML and WordPress templates and stuff like that on the Thesis forums, using that software, learning how to code PHP by digging into his code, basically. And somehow we just ended up getting friendly. I don't remember if we had a mutual friend or what, but we got to know each other, and through him, he was really well connected. So he knew a lot of people. But that was Blog World. I went to WWDC. And again, it's hard. It's super hard to just show up like a lonely dude. You got to kind of be the kind of person who knows. Like, first of all, I used to say, like, yeah, just get to know everybody or pick the high-profile people. But now I'm like, no, find the people that you dig. Find the people, like I've really wanted to meet some people, like hunted them down, tried to figure this out, like how do I get this person to like me? And then you get to meet them, and then you're like, I wouldn't actually, if I had a cocktail party right now, I wouldn't invite you to it. Meaning like I want people that I can hang out with and just have fun talking to, and where we could do life together, kind of, and so looking for those kinds of people, so depending on if you're a graphic designer or a blogger or whatever, you might find those people in different places, but they're online right now, and those relationships you can already start those. Does that make any sense?
It makes total sense, man. Yeah. So I mean, because you work with a lot of bloggers, right?
Yeah.
So it's really cool. I mean, it's cool to know that you're more. I mean, you're obviously a designer, but a lot of your clients are the people that you work with and learn from are bloggers, right? Or and entrepreneurs. And it's in my opinion, it's really good to learn a lot from them. Yeah. And pick up off of what they do, which is really neat. And I really admire that. I think it's really important. Just as you said, to go to different conferences. If you're interested, if you want to know a specific person that really isn't involved in your line of work, I mean, I think it'd be pretty cool to go to those kind of conferences where they would be. Right?
Yeah, and again, it costs money and it costs time, right? So but you got to try it out. Definitely. And I mean, best case scenario, you go to the sessions, and the sessions are awesome too, and whatever, Yeah. I've always wanted to go to an event apart, one of those, the list apart ones, the Happy Cog ones, and I've always wanted to go to a lot of conferences, but I've only ended up going to these silly little blog ones. I went to WWDC, but I didn't get a pass. I went, World Domination Summit up in Portland's always a great time, and I've always wanted to go to Build ever since I saw Wilson Miner's Build talk, where it was just like my whole life was that video. If listeners haven't seen that build talk from Wilson Minor, and like I don't know when that was. It was a few years back, but that's a really really good. I mean, that's the kind of thing where you're like, I want to go to the sessions, you know.
Yeah. And we'll definitely have that in the show notes. That build video.
Cool. Yeah.
But
there's amazing stuff going on. There's amazing events. There's amazing and more than anything, think about it in terms of look at it this way: like the people are putting their butt on the line to make something that they care about and support their families doing it. You are in this boat too, or at least you probably want to be, or you're looking for how to do it. Your relationships absolutely play a critical role in that story. If you stay around at the local coffee shop, you're going to meet everybody who's in the local coffee shop only, exactly. Right? But if you get out and I guess what I can really say is from my experience, I'm like all of the connections and friendships that I've made happened there, and they also grew online as well. But it was then when we got into Meet Space together that it ended up really multiplying.
So would you say that you get a lot of requests to work with you now because of these relationships? Yeah,
and because of the work that I've done, a lot of people like Think Traffic, Paid to Exist. These are high traffic sites. Also, Nerd Fitness is another one, and Smart Passive Income is soon to be released. And again, all of those were friends. Every single one of those were guys that I knew and I could just approach and talk like, hey, listen, I'm trying to do. Corbett was like, hey, I'm trying to do this thing. Right? Let me just work on your thing. We'll figure out some sort of small fee, and I just really need to make something big that's good. And do so. And he was awesome because he allowed me to make. It was a really really wild redesign at the time for a blog. So he was bold enough to do it, and then Paid to Exist, and then Nerd Fitness, and so now we're not taking any client work at all. You know, I had this dream of like having Fizzle and Think Traffic doing so this high quality training, this publishing platform and Think Traffic, and then like an agency arm where we could help our friends and big brands who wanted to pay us loads of money to like be some design a Twitter background or some shit, but I had this dream of doing that, and maybe one day, but right now, really, we can make Fizzle really, really good, or we can be a really, really good agency, and we chose to do this entrepreneurial education thing because it's more rewarding in a lot of ways. I mean, do you do client work, Caesar?
I do, yeah, I do some client work. Yeah. But I also want to talk about Fizzle, man. That is just a sharp website. I mean, everything. All the videos, everything that you have on there, everything, the way things are laid out, it's just so simple to use. That brings up another good point. Usability. Yeah. Simple, ease of use. That's obviously really important. But talk to us a little bit more about not getting caught up in being perfect in your design. What's more important? Is your design overall the most important thing from what you're trying to do on your website, or what you're trying to create for clients, or what is it that's more important? If that's the most important thing.
It's a good question. I kind of go back to the. So this is what happens to me in every project. And going back to the, I'm gonna try to weave a little piece of magic here. I'm gonna go all the way back to the pencil versus pixel question, weave in a little Frank Chimero, and end up on a heartfelt note. You ready for this?
Yes, let's go.
I hope I can remember what I was even thinking about saying. But this is what typical projects look like for me. I start with the pencil and I draw things out and kind of get it going. It's like, oh yeah, this is gonna be fucking awesome. This is gonna be amazing. It's gonna make me look so good. I'm gonna do all these amazing things that I've seen on sites that I really love, right? And then I get into Photoshop and I start like, bam, drawing these big boxes, putting things together, like really figuring out how it's gonna be responsive and all this other stuff. And then like slowly but surely, like getting like more and more disappointed. Like this isn't doing it. It's not like where it is. And so I like add a little text shadow, or I do, you know what I mean, or whatever. I start doing that. I'm like, what is it? Like I start getting more and more frustrated that it's not making me look good as good as I'd like to look, or something like that. Kind of starts in this narcissistic thing. I think so. I don't know. I'm not like I'd ever think that way, but I think that's where the depression comes from. And eventually, I get to this point where you go away, you eat dinner, and you come back, and you're like, "Fuck, this sucks. This is so dumb." right? So you just like delete the Photoshop file, and actually I never delete the Photoshop, but I just open up a brand new one, and just start drawing these big blocks, and putting these really stark, brash headlines in. And what I've done is I spent a bunch of time in Pixels trying to figure out this Frank Shamaro quote, what the thing actually is. And not just what it is, but what it is in a way that makes it feel different from the other things that are like this, right? So to me, the design of the thing is really what it is, and I'm trying to find a fresh, honest, heartfelt, raw way of looking at that. The way that Louis C.K. looks at humor and comedy, as he wants to create some sort of crazy, raw experience with what it's like to be human. You know, I think he's trying to create this experience where or at least for me, he makes me feel comfortable in my own skin, even when he's talking about just crazy shit, you know, that's like disgusting or this, that, and the other. I'm like, yes, totally, someone said it, you know. Yeah. I kind of looking for that same vibe. When I'm redesigning like Pat Flynn's site, Smart Passive Income, I'm like, who is Pat? What is this? Where's the humanity in this? What's the bad guy? What's the fear and the darkness and the decay that could possibly be here, or the dragon we're trying to slay? Where, like, with the people, the thing that I always do is I read just about every comment on the site before I design it. So I did this with Think Traffic. I read. There's thousands of comments. I read just about all of them and trying to make sense of who's who and what's going on. And I started getting invested in these people's stories and seeing how earnest and heartfelt they were. They really wanted to do this thing. And yeah, you could look at it and be like, oh God, this kid has no clue what they're doing. And then, you know, several posts later, it's like maybe you see a little story grow up a little bit more or whatever. And then you see this other, you know, 45-year-old woman who's like really trying to make a second start in life. And you just see like these people, like they're really trying. And you see a lot of other people being like, oh yeah, you made a pretty good point. Yeah, I would say it a little differently. I'll probably say, you know, a little different, but that's pretty good, Corey. You know, guys kind of posturing and who have never made a thing, you know, all this stuff, right? And I just started to fall in love with the people. And I started to see what was at stake for them. This is what happens in the project, really figuring out what this thing is. And normally for me, that revolves around the people on the other side, the user, the visitor, the 45-year-old woman trying for a fresh start in her life, or whatever. So when I feel the pain of that, when I feel the what's at stake there, it's sort of, that's when I start to get a sense for what this thing really is. And that ends up being the most important thing. It's less about that's not at all about like, hey, will this make me look cool? Will this like make me look good? I've got enough sites out there that do that, I think, for that I'm happy with that. And now I get to just say, what is Fizzle? What is this supposed to be? You know, what dragons are we slaying here? What's really at stake for the people here? Because if someone has the opportunity to do this and feel the autonomy and individuality and creativity of creating their own business with the fear and all that means, like, we've got a lot of emotional things to manage here, because it's going to take them 2-3 times longer than they think it's going to take to actually start up this business and make it successful. It's probably not going to be the current idea that they're working on. These are all things that we know, but we can't just come out and say, like, you're an idiot. You don't know how long it's going to take. You've got the wrong idea. And we can tell you how to, you know, it's like, we don't want to come out like that. We want to kind of coach them along the way. So that's like a hugely emotional process. So for me, if there's been any like success in design for me, it's been either because because of the friends who hired me, like we talked about earlier, or I'm pretty good at, or I like to think that I'm pretty good at soaking myself in the pain and desire and what's at stake for that target audience. And so when you ask what's important, you know, the design or like, to me, that's all of that stuff is the design, right? So that all goes into it. And so maybe I should say that, you know, the really thinking about user experience and the user is most important, but really I can't say it more succinctly than that. You know, like all of that, just the meaty, human, organic, writhing, sweaty, disgusting mass, like that's the design to me, you know?
Nice. Hey, going back to your how you pointed out your when you're designing something on Photoshop, for example, and designing a new site, and you completely hate that design. Brought up a good question, which is if you could let us know about a time that you fell completely flat on your face, something didn't go right, something went completely wrong. What happened and what did you do about that?
Well, I can say maybe this. 'Cause there's plenty of, I'm sure there's plenty of times I fell flat on my face, but you always kind of like iterate from there. You know, I mean,
Right.
every single mock-up that I've ever made has been like it's not been there. But when we launched the nerdfitness.com site, it's really like Steve's a friend, the founder of that site is a friend, and what we did is we designed that in 1 week. He came over, and because I had committed a long time ago, I was like, I love Steve a lot. I love Nerd Fitness, and I wanted to help him with the site. He really wanted me to design it, but we were way too swamped with Fizzle and all this other stuff. So I'm like, okay, just come over for a week. We'll get it done in a week. And I actually turned this into a course in Fizzle where I filmed all of our client interaction, and so that can all be watched there. But when we launched when you launch a big site, like when we launched Smart Passive Income coming up here pretty soon, I think in October, when we launched, these are two really big sites, like even bigger than Think Traffic. Like Nerd Fitness gets 1 million visitors a month, like it's massive. In my terms, there's no matter what you make any sort of change, and you're going to hear a vocal minority. So that was kind of new for me with Think Traffic. The redesign, there was like, we did this post where it was like, hey, we redesigned Think Traffic, and it's amazing. Like 99% of comments are like, oh, amazing, And then there's one guy named Shlomo who's like, I like the old blue better, and I loved that. I actually put that in my little portfolio site just because I thought it was a hilarious quote. But up to Nerd Fitness, I had not really experienced a lot of bad feedback about stuff from the audience, and there was quite a bit of backlash on it just because these are nerds and there's millions of them, and there's going to be at least 20 or 30 that really wow, this is stupid,
Exactly.
And it was interesting talking to Steve about that because he knew his audience really well, how they respond over time to stuff like this. He's like, oh yeah, because I had heard that and I saw the comments coming in on Facebook. I was like, oh shit, dang, we screwed up, I fucked up. And then I talked to Steve about it. He's like, oh, no, don't even worry about that. This is just how things go in the community.
Nice.
This is what it's like to launch something in the Nerd Fitness. Every time he releases a new product or new, blog series or something like that, he's like, yeah, this is how the nerds respond. Eventually, it'll be fine. They won't even remember that there was an old version of the site. So that was kind of a lesson learned. There was nothing really to do after that. It was just kind of correcting my assumptions or rejiggering my assumptions about how I'll take feedback from a big audience when I launch in the future, something like that,
So now you jump in there expecting it, right? Expecting something that some negative feedback.
Yeah, so for Pat Flynn's redesign, I mean, it's a really big difference from where it is now, even though so much of the brand is the same. And so I'm just anticipating, there's going to be a vocal minority of people who really dislike it. But most of the time, my goal is not to blow someone away with the design. I mean, it has been. With Think Traffic, it was my very first big site I was designing. I was trying to do something big. But now it's like, no, I want it to be a great experience on that site for that person who needs that stuff. Someone who's suffering from hemorrhoids, when they land on the hemorrhoid site, on my hemorrhoid site, I really want them to feel like, fuck, this guy's talking just to me. I want to be able to say things better than they knew how to say themselves about their situation and their problem. And that's the dream. So if people who don't have hemorrhoids think that's a stupid looking website, I'm like, I could care less. That's something that I've definitely had to learn over time.
That is awesome, man. Hey, so we're about running out of time here, but before we go, I wanted to ask you, so our community of creatives need to hear more actionable advice. I hate to say the word actionable. Is there another word besides actionable?
Shit to do.
There you go. Shit to do.
Say these creatives who need shit to do.
So
actually,
yeah. So Chase, what are your tips? What would you tell a creative who wants to say or who has thought about making the leap for themselves and working for themselves, maybe freelancing, creating a business, starting a business, online, offline, whatever? What's your
there's okay, I'll give you one too often used answer, but it's only more and more true every day. And then I'll give you one, and then I'll give you two built-in answers that are kind of, well, I'll give you these three answers. Okay, first of all, the one that you'll hear all the time is just start now. And it feels cliche, but it's so true. I get questions all the time from people, and Corbett times 10 gets all these questions. Hey, I'm thinking of starting my business, but I'm not sure if I should incorporate and do like an LLC or an S corp, or like maybe I should I hire like a designer to do the logo, or should I do like a 99 design, or like I'm wondering if if I should we have shirts before we actually launch the website, and like all of this shit that will not at all have any consequence, anything to say about whether or not your business will be successful or not. And what you need to see is that the goal is to see if this can be successful or not. And that means just start. Feel what it's like to be someone who's writing a blog post or making that thing, or doing like what it's like to be doing that. Because there are no rules, and there's plenty of best practices and all this other shit. You'll learn all of that. But really the big point being, just start, get it out, be vulnerable, do all that stuff. And I should probably just stop there. But I will give the bonus answer of, in episode 16 of the Fizzle Show, we talk about what I wish I would have known before I got started and did all of this stuff. So, I mean, that's from Corbett, myself, and Caleb, and then a handful of other friends that we wrote to, all giving their answers to. Nice. These are all successful people saying what I wish I would have known. And there's awesome advice in there. A lot of the times we kind of, definitely people say that, just get started thing. But the big one for me is like having this long-term vision. And I kind of explain that, as well as thinking about value, thinking about the other person. I've always been, I want to make this, so I'm going to make this. And this is me. And here I am making this thing. And look at my website. Isn't it neat? And all me. And my life has totally shifted since I got into the perspective of, no, I need to build an audience and serve them. They have hemorrhoids, and I need to serve them. They make something useful for their butthole, not mine. And if I have hemorrhoids too, I'm just going to be better off at making something useful for someone's butthole if I focus on myself. But I got to realize that the real goal, same thing with design, is how are they going to, the target audience, really going to resonate with this? And is it going to connect the way it's supposed to?
Chase, do you cover the sort of the financial part of it? What you should do? Should you save? Should you, of course, start, right?
Yeah.
But let's say someone wants to say screw you to their job and take off.
Yeah.
I mean, what then, right?
Yeah.
What do you recommend for that person?
Well, first of all, grow up. Second of all, just start. You have to start now. Don't quit your job before you start and realize it's going to take you 2 years to make $1. And don't quit your job and force yourself into a situation where you have to whore yourself out, or not. The whoring yourself out is different than hustling. You know what I mean? Right. But you can build a really amazing audience around a thing, or you can try to rape them to make this month's rent, right? Go for play for the long game. Play for the next 6 to 18 months. You're going to work on the side, do your little side hustle thing, and learn what it's like to put up a website and do this, that, and the other, and whatever. And maybe it's if it's doing client work, then you got to learn what that's like too. And that's hard. What's hard about that is getting fucking clients. So either you make a partner who can do that stuff, or you have something unique about you, or you start working as a freelancer for a bunch of agencies or whatever. No matter what, you have a shitty job boss now. Try having 1,000 shitty bosses when you're trying to build an audience, no matter what, you work for somebody else. So the question is, what's your craft? What are you going to be good at? Who are you going to serve? Over the long haul, what kind of value are you going to create? And can you find a way to make something you're proud of and buy your kid gluten-free crackers at the same time? That's, to me, the ultimate art of life.
That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, just to get gluten-free crackers, making something I'm proud of.
Man, Chase, we're about to wrap up the show, but before we do, can you tell us about any other exciting stuff? You've talked about the redesign of the Smart Passive Income website, but anything else with your projects? Any personal stuff?
Yeah, well, right now I'm in the middle of designing. I've never designed like a dashboard sort of super software-y thing before, And man, this is like a whole different ballgame. This,
Wow.
I'm glad I didn't get into this beforehand because I don't think I would have been ready for it. But this is amazing. I'm designing this dashboard for Fizzle. That's sort of this course map, where you are in the journey. I'm trying to steward the entrepreneurs, like all of these expectations and fears and desires and dreams that they have, making it real, helping them realize, be realistic about this. You have a lot to go, as well as look how far you've come at the same time.
Nice.
You know, as saying like, don't worry about anything else. Just click this button. This takes you to your next lesson. You got 8 minutes. Let's just do that. You know what I mean? As well as kind of giving them feedback about like, hey, you're taking courses slower than most Fizzlers, or faster, or whatever. You know, so really thinking about the purpose of all these things and what these metrics are and how to communicate it in a way that is in line with what we want to do. You know, because to me, I'm really sensitive to the fact that like, if I would have seen this thing with just like, you know, however many courses that we have, and where we have, you know, 50 courses to take, and I'm just like, I don't even want to get started. This feels like impossible. So that is an amazing design challenge for me, because I don't have the right answers. I have to try to, you know, in those pixels, I've thrown away a lot of stuff already, trying to discover what the visual metaphor is going to be for this thing. So anyways, that's going to come soon, which changes a lot about the direction of Fizzle. It was kind of a lynda.com grab bag of courses to take, and now it's heading much more towards you know, there are 4 things that every business has. Here's how we're going to tackle those, and you're going to go through this. And by the end of this one, you're going to be able to give your elevator pitch to anybody. And anytime we see you, by the way, we're going to ask for it, you know, and stuff like that. So, and anyways, I'm just excited about this shift. It's a new direction, and it feels really right, you know.
Very cool, man.
Yeah.
So besides that, anything else? Where can we find you?
So Think Traffic and Fizzle are the 2 places. I have my own little personal blog where I sort of off-gas on internet. It's sort of just my little playground at icetothebrim.com, because any good cocktail starts with ice to the brim. And if people don't care about who they follow on Twitter, they could follow me. But I can't make any guarantees in that regard. Besides, most of the time, it'll be confusing.
And you'll be able to find Chase, all of these links on the show notes under pencilversuspixel.com/Chase Reeves. Chase, Thank you so much for being on the show.
All right.
You've given him incredible information, a lot of insight, and we'll catch you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Caesar.